everybody, it is Mrs. Clemens, and join me, please, once again for another episode of Psychology Flipped. Woo woo! And make sure to, as always, keep calm and study psychology. Well, today what we're going to be talking about is personality and finding out what makes us who we are. Our good friend Larry has joined us again to let us know when to write. So remember, you only need to write when Larry is on the page. Hi, Larry, I love you. All right, so our first question is, of course, what on earth is this thing we keep talking about now, personality? It's our unique behaviors and attitudes and emotions that characterize us as an individual. It's basically what makes us who we are. Now, you look here and you see the seven dwarves, and, you know, we've got bashful and happy and dopey. They're supposed to be, an idea of personality, but you guys know that we're not just monolithic like that. We're not just one person. We're not just happy or grumpy or whatever Doc is. We're multifaceted. We're complex. We have many unique behaviors. So, let's talk about that. How on earth do we figure out what our personality is? Well, there's a bunch of different schools of thought or approaches. So the first one is sort of the one that you're probably the most used to, the idea of a trait, saying that, oh, well, you are happy or sad, or you have a big attentiveness to detail. You're very emotional. You're friendly. And so the big five factors that people that are better with words than myself have are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, meaning how outgoing you are, agreeableness, and neuroticism, like how much are you worrying about things. And so there used to be just the two types of personalities, the type A and the type B. And we talked about type A a little bit when we talked about stress, basically saying that they're seen as ambitious, aggressive, controlling, competitive, very preoccupied with your status, workaholics. Today, psychologists see this as a little bit too simplistic, saying that you're either type A or you're type B, that you're apathetic and patient, relaxed, like just kind of going with the flow, Joe. And so I have a little cartoon here, with the type A personality, like, I will conquer the mountain because it's there, or I will sleep on the mountain because it's there and it's so comfy. We see this as too simplistic today. We're going to actually do some personality stuff in class. I found this because it was My Little Pony, and I just thought they scare me, and maybe they will scare you. But now they're much more complex. They've got all these different initials that go with them and whatever. So if you want, you can pause and read this. We'll talk about it more later. It's from Myers-Briggs. It's this whole thing. So going back to the whole trait thing and the big five, you've got the extroversion and all these different traits that go along with it. These are the inverse, the opposite. So talkative versus shy, extroverted versus quiet. I'm actually moving as I do this, which is a little weird. Agreeable, sympathetic versus cold, conscientious, organized versus disorganized. Emotional stability, which was the idea of neuroticism, being relaxed versus moody. Intellect, creative versus uncreative. All right, so that one, it's a little bit outmoded. I mean, we still use it today, but it's just not the best. So our next one is behavioral cognitive, and they're going to look at, well, how did we get to be how we are? Oh, it's from our environment, that whole nurture idea, and the situations that we're put in life. So our big guy for behaviorism is B.F. Skinner. And so he says that we get our behavior, basically we've learned it through operant conditioning, which we haven't learned yet, but we're going to learn it and you're going to like it. And basically through rewards and punishments. So if you have a kid that's crying all the time and whining and then they get what they want, they're going to learn that they're going to what? Oh yes, you're absolutely right. Keep whining and crying to get what they want, and thus they'll be a whiny person that no one likes. I like looking at the picture of B.F. Skinner because his head looks like a triangle. Hello. He's probably not happy with me saying that. He's not around though, so never mind. Our next guy is social learning theory, Albert Bandura. And he said that personality is formed by modeling. Basically, you learn from watching other people. So Let's say you're the little sibling and you just kind of watch your big brother and you just kind of, you want to be like Mike, which is a commercial you guys probably don't get, but talk about Michael Jordan. He used to play the basketball. They dribbled and shot into baskets. Anyway, so you want to be like other people. I actually see this a lot today with people wanting to be like people in the media, not even as much like their siblings, but, kind of dressing like them and looking like them and doing all weird things with their hair and clothing. This is Albert Bandura. He's a hottie toddy. All right, so our next one, Freud. I love you, Freud, because you're interesting. And he has the psychodynamic theory. And he says, and his is a little bit more complex, he says that our personalities come from our unconscious conflicts and desires. Ooh. And what unconscious means in the world of Freud is that our mind contains material that we're not aware of in our conscious selves. So there are things that we're thinking that we're not even aware that we're thinking, or we're thinking them, but we're not aware why we're thinking them. And just a fun thing, just as a side note to kind of put in here, the idea of a Freudian slip where your unconscious mind is thinking. So if I were to say someone's name other than my husband, maybe I'm secretly in love with them. I'm not. So, like, seriously. Like, if you hear anything about that, do not tell him. He'll be really upset. And that's just mean. So anyway, Freud has 3 subsystems of personality. He has the id. Why do kids always say ID? That's just weird. It's id. It's a word. And that's our most primitive, our most unconscious, according to Freud. It's very basic. So, me wants food, me wants drink, me wants sleep. Ego is your rational, logical part, and that, starts a little bit later when you're actually old enough to be rational. And that's the, all right, well, how am I going to get the food and the sleep? And then your super ego is your conscious. It's the thing that says, hey, maybe I shouldn't steal that from someone. And so the way that Freud's 3 ideas here are usually shown is with the iceberg. And so you notice our id, because it's unconscious under the water, it's totally under there. So, like, if you see a very nice, attractive looking person, and you're looking at them and you're like, wow, the id is really what you're thinking is you want to, with them. But outwardly you're just thinking, nice. Your ego is the one that has the most that's outside of the water. Your super ego, we do have a lot of it that is under the water, that we're just kind of born with that sort of natural conscience and guilt, that we just know certain things are wrong. Like, don't talk about that guy's mom, he'll be upset. And I like this cartoon too, that basically we have these 3 dudes, or dudettes, if you'd like to say, in our head. The id that's saying, me wanty. The ego that's saying, well, how do I get it? And the super ego saying, no, maybe I shouldn't take that guy because, my friend's going out with him. I know I shouldn't have done that. All right, so we talked about this also under stress defense mechanisms. And so we talked about denial and intellectualization. And here's a couple of other ones. Repression, where you're pushing something out of your consciousness. It's as if it never happened. So when I was telling you guys my falling stories, I obviously did not repress them. I did not push them out of my consciousness, but maybe I would have that, so if someone would talk to me and say, hey, Clemens, remember when you fell? And I would say, no. Displacement is when you can't be mad or show your anger or your feelings at the person who you actually have them towards, so you displace it towards somebody else. So an example might be your teacher really upset you during class and they gave you a 0 on something, so during lunch you yell at your friends. You yell at your friends because you can yell at your friends, but you can't yell at your teacher. Seriously, don't yell at me. Projection, when you blame somebody else. Again, this is one of my fun summer school ones where kids would say, no, it's not my fault I failed, it was all that guy's fault because he failed me. Like, they were always out to get me. That's not true, you failed yourself. Haha, suckers. Rationalism is basically you reinterpret it to justify your actions. Well, yeah, I cheated because everybody cheats. Like, it's what everybody does. no, it's not what everyone does. Get some morals, get some superego going. And then regression, going back to a less mature pattern of behavior. So you hear about this a lot, like when I don't know, you have a kid and then you have a new baby and then they start wetting the bed again, or you've got somebody that's in that midlife crisis where all of a sudden they're dyeing their hair and driving around in a convertible. They've regressed. So if you're burping in class, yes, you're not mature, but you're not regressing per se. Don't burp in class, that's gross. All right, so some criticisms which we're not writing down, but just to kind of talk about. It's really difficult to test his theories. Like, how do we know that we have an unconscious? Like, how do you find that out? It doesn't always predict the behavior. In terms of using a sample size to actually study it, it wasn't a very large sample. So thanks, Freud. But we do like the defense mechanisms, like we talked about under stress. All right, our next theory is humanistic, and actually our last. And this is by this gentleman right here, Mr. Maslow, Abraham Maslow. And he believed in this idea that your personality is kind of derived based on, do you meet your potential, your life potential of being the best you can be. And so what he came up with is this idea of a hierarchy of needs. And the goal is self-actualization. And so he's very big on your own sense of yourself. Do you like yourself? Well, if you don't, then that kind of goes into your personality. If you do, then that goes into your personality. Oh, by the way, this is the slide I love doing because, haha, you have to copy the triangle or the pyramid or whatever you'd like to call it, but it's a hierarchy. So at the top, we have, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to be a rebel. I'm going to start on the bottom. So our first set of needs, according to Maslow, that he says we have to have met is our physiological, like shelter, food, clothing. You can't go past this if you don't have those things. Then your next one is safety and security. So yeah, you might be in a house where you're being fed, but you're worried you're going to get beat up every day. So that's not cool. Then the next one is love and belongingness, and that can be, your friends love you. It doesn't have to necessarily be your family, but it would be nice that if they like you, I like you. Love and belongingness is the next one up. And he says that 80 to 90% of us never develop past that. So, wow, bummer, dude. Then the next one is self-esteem. And really think about it. Do you like yourself? Do you, look in the mirror and kind of think happy thoughts? That is kind of hard. And then the top one is self-actualization. Basically, you are being the best you can be. So if the best you can be is being a mechanic, like, and you love your job and you're happy and you feel fulfilled, then that's awesome. You're self-actualized. If you're a mechanic, but at the same time you're, upset about it all the time and you're wishing you had made other life decisions and constantly yearning for something else, then no, you're not self-actualized. Just a side note, one of the ways that he kind of came up with some of this is studying some people that he considered self-actualized, like Abraham Lincoln, Eleanor Roosevelt, Albert Einstein. And he said that, listen, they might have emotional difficulties. Lincoln, at points in his life, was suicidal. Eleanor Roosevelt, constantly made fun of her looks. But they perceive reality accurately. They accept themselves for who they are. They're not self-centered, so they're not stuck up. They're spontaneous, meaning that they're willing to kind of break the mold and do something different. And, all right, today I'm leaving the house. I know I wasn't supposed to, but I'm doing it. Sense of humor, again, talking about Lincoln, he was known for telling dirty jokes. Isn't that crazy? Being able to be okay alone with no internet, no phone, no texting or tweeting or any of that stuff. Can you do that? Being independent, having some close friends, but real close friends, and seeking discovery of new things. And for us to assess our personality, you can have tasks like a questionnaire, which we're going to do in class. You can have projective, looking at ink blots, which we'll look at that a little bit later too. You could tell a story about a scene, whatever you'd like to do. Well, next we're going to talk about personality disorders. Hopefully we won't find that you have too many. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed.